It's a sultry night in July. You've fallen asleep in the armchair. Abruptly, you startle awake, disoriented. The television set is on, but not the sound. You strain to understand what you're seeing. Two ghostly white figures in coveralls and helmets are softly dancing under a pitch-black sky. They make strange little skipping motions, which propel them upward amid barely perceptible clouds of dust. But something's wrong. They take too long to come down. Encumbered as they are, they seem to be flying. A little. You rub your eyes, but the dreamlike tableau persists. Of all the events surrounding Apollo 11's landing on the moon on July 20th, 1969, my most vivid recollection is its unreal quality. Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin shuffled along the gray, dusty lunar surface, the Earth looming large in their sky, while Michael Collins, now the moon's own moon, orbited above them in lonely vigil. Yes, it was an astonishing technological achievement and a triumph for the United States. Yes, the astronauts displayed death-defying courage. Yes, as Armstrong said as he first alighted, this was a historic step for the human species. But if you turned off the byplay between Mission Control and the Sea of Tranquility, with its deliberately mundane and routine chatter, and stared into that black-and-white television monitor, you could glimpse that we humans had entered the realm of myth and legend. We knew the moon from our earliest days. It was there when our ancestors descended from the trees into the savannas, when we learned to walk upright, when we first devised stone tools, when we domesticated fire, when we invented agriculture and built cities, and set out to subdue the earth. Folklore and popular songs celebrate a mysterious connection between the moon and love. The word month and the second day of the week are both named after the moon. Its waxing and waning, from crescent to full to crescent to new, was widely understood as a celestial metaphor of death and rebirth. It was connected with the ovulation cycle of women, which has nearly the same period, as the word menstruation. Latin mensis means month, ultimately from the word to measure, as the word menstruation reminds us. Those who sleep in moonlight go mad, the story went, and the connection is preserved in the English word lunatic. In the old Persian story, a vizier, renowned for his wisdom, is asked which is more useful, the sun or the moon. The moon, he answers, because the sun shines in daytime, when it's light out anyway. Especially when we lived out of doors, it was a major, if oddly intangible, presence in our lives. The moon was a metaphor for the unattainable. You might as well ask for the moon, they used to say. Or, you can no more do that than fly to the moon. For most of our history, we had no idea what it was. A spirit, a god, a thing. It didn't look like something big far away, but more like something small nearby. Something the size of a plate, maybe, hanging in the sky a little above our heads. Ancient Greek philosophers debated the proposition that the moon is exactly as large as it looks, close quote, betraying a hopeless confusion between linear and angular size. Walking on the moon would have seemed a screwball idea. It made more sense to imagine somehow climbing up into the sky on a ladder or on the back of a giant bird, grabbing the moon and bringing it down to Earth. Nobody ever succeeded, although there were myths aplenty about heroes who had tried. Not until a few centuries ago did the idea of the moon as a place, 250,000 miles away, gain wide currency. And in that brief flicker of time, we've gone from the earliest steps in understanding the moon's nature to walking and joyriding on its surface. We calculated how objects move in space, liquefied oxygen from the air, invented big rockets, telemetry, reliable electronics, inertial guidance, and much else. And then we sailed out into the sky. I was lucky enough to be involved in the Apollo program, but I don't blame people who think the whole thing was faked in a Hollywood movie studio. In the late Roman Empire, pagan philosophers had attacked Christian doctrine on the ascension to heaven of the body of Christ and on the promised bodily resurrection of the dead, for the good reason that the force of gravity pulls down all earthly bodies. St. Augustine rejoined in these words, "If human skill can by some contrivance fabricate vessels that float out of metals which sink, how much more credible is it that God, by some hidden mode of operation, should even more certainly effect that these earthly masses be emancipated from the chains that bind them to earth." That humans should one day discover such a mode of operation was beyond imagining. 1,500 years later, we emancipated ourselves. The achievement elicited an amalgam of awe and concern. Some remembered the story of the Tower of Babel. Some, Orthodox Muslims among them, felt that setting foot on the moon's surface was impudence and sacrilege. Many greeted it as a turning point in history. The moon is no longer unattainable. A dozen humans, all Americans, have made those odd bounding motions they called moonwalks on the crunchy, cratered, ancient gray lava, beginning on that July day in 1969. But since 1972, no one from any nation has ventured back. Indeed, none of us has gone anywhere since the glory days of Apollo, except into low Earth orbit. Like a toddler who takes a few tentative steps outward and then, breathless, retreats to the safety of his mother's skirts. For all its material advantages, the sedentary life has left us edgy, unfulfilled. Even after 400 generations in villages and cities, we haven't forgotten. The open road still softly calls, like a nearly forgotten song of childhood. We invest far-off places with a certain romance. The appeal, I suspect, has been meticulously crafted by natural selection as an essential element in our survival. Long summers, mild winters, rich harvests, plentiful game, none of them lasts forever. Your own life, or your band's, or even your species might be owed to a restless few drawn by a craving they can hardly articulate or understand, to undiscovered lands and new worlds. Melville in Moby Dick spoke for wanderers in all epochs and meridians. He said, "I am tormented with an everlasting itch for things remote. I love to sail forbidden seas." Maybe it's a little early. Maybe the time is not quite yet. But those other worlds, promising untold opportunities, beckon. Silently, they orbit the sun, waiting. We were hunters and foragers. The frontier was everywhere. We were bounded only by the earth and the ocean and the sky. The open road still softly calls. Our little terraqueous globe is the madhouse of those 100,000 millions of worlds. We who cannot even put our own planetary home in order, riven with rivalries and hatreds, are we to venture out into space? By the time we're ready to settle even the nearest other planetary systems, we will have changed. The simple passage of so many generations will have changed us. Necessity will have changed us. We're an adaptable species. It will not be we who reach Alpha Centauri and the other nearby stars. It will be a species very like us, but with more of our strengths and fewer of our weaknesses. More confident, far-seeing, capable, and prudent. For all our failings, despite our limitations and fallibilities, we humans are capable of greatness. What new wonders, undreamt of in our time, will we have wrought in another generation, and another? How far will our nomadic species have wandered by the end of the next century, and the next millennium? Our remote descendants, safely arrayed on many worlds through the solar system and beyond, will be unified by their common heritage, by their regard for their home planet, and by the knowledge that whatever other life may be, the only humans in all the universe come from Earth. They will gaze up and strain to find the blue dot in their skies. They will marvel at how vulnerable the repository of all our potential once was, how perilous our infancy, how humble our beginnings, how many rivers we had to cross, before we found our way. From this distant vantage point, the Earth might not seem of any particular interest. But for us, it's different. Consider again that dot. That's here. That's home. That's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you ever heard of, every human being who ever was, lived out their lives. The aggregate of our joy and suffering, thousands of confident religions, ideologies, and economic doctrines, every hunter and forager, every hero and coward, every creator and destroyer of civilization, every king and peasant, every young couple in love, every mother and father, hopeful child, inventor and explorer, every teacher of morals, every corrupt politician, every superstar, every supreme leader, every saint and sinner in the history of our species lived there, on the mote of dust, suspended in a sunbeam. The Earth is a very small stage in a vast cosmic arena. Think of the rivers of blood spilled by all those generals and emperors, so that in glory and triumph they could become the momentary masters of a fraction of a dot. Think of the endless cruelties visited by the inhabitants of one corner of this pixel on the scarcely distinguishable inhabitants of some other corner. How frequent their misunderstandings, how eager they are to kill one another, how fervent their hatreds. Our posturings, our imagined self-importance, the delusion that we have some privileged position in the universe, are challenged by this point of pale light. Our planet is a lonely speck in the great enveloping cosmic dark. In our obscurity, in all this vastness, there is no hint that help will come from elsewhere to save us from ourselves. The Earth is the only world known so far to harbor life. There is nowhere else, at least in the near future, to which our species could migrate. Visit? Yes. Settle? Not yet. Like it or not, for the moment, the Earth is where we make our stand. It has been said that astronomy is a humbling and character-building experience. There is perhaps no better demonstration of the folly of human conceits than this distant image of our tiny world. To me, it underscores our responsibility to deal more kindly with one another and to preserve and cherish the pale blue dot, the only home we've ever known.